You, sir, are based out of Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yes.
You're licensed with eXp Realty, and you teach agents real estate marketing, and you host a podcast called Massive Agent I want to say Massive Agent Marketing, but it's Massive Agent Podcast.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. Awesome. You're also have written blog articles for Zillow, RIS Media, Homelight, Realtor.org, Inman. So I'm kind of honored that you're here on the show.
I mean, I'm kind of envious because I've tried to become an Inman speaker and they just don't want this face on stage. So
I'm telling you, man, they just gotta pat that down there.
They're missing out. That's all.
So welcome. So what's going on, man? Nice to meet you.
Oh yeah, pleased to meet you guys. Thanks for having me on. I mean, anytime I can talk about marketing and the industry and just like all this, the ground shifting underneath our feet, I'm excited to do it. I was actually at a lunch earlier with some people from my brokerage as like a meetup type thing. And just hearing the ways some of them were talking about how they're marketing themselves, I was kind of cringing because they're talking about the flyers and the door hangers and the magnets and stuff. And that's all they do. That's it. And I'm like, how is this still possible?
Yeah, how are you still winning? Right? Because that stuff's we think that's the earth has moved past those days, and that if that's still your, I'm insinuating by your tone of voice that you do think that's a little
antiquated.
We kind of thought that we would do a video of us at Phil's dad's realtor, and then have those things like along with it being buried with her, so that we could move past that as an industry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's just so many things that are available now. And even more important than that, our world has changed so dramatically in the last 10 years for sure, since the iPhone came out. But even the last 5 years, 3 years, what we expect as consumers, the general public, what we pay attention to, what we tune out, has completely changed recently, and it continues to do so. I mean, we were talking about Alexa before we got started, and Alexa's changing everything, and podcasting's changing everything. Like, we want everything on demand. We want it concise. We want it, we have demands now that we didn't 3 years ago. But
so do you have like three tips or 5 tips?
Oh, I mean, like what? I got a more specific question than that. And it's not one, I mean, because I just want to let our listeners know that we don't have hour-long prep meetings with our guests, right? Like, we believe in bringing on people that are professionals, and we're just going to throw questions at you. Because we actually did a presentation here recently, and the guy said, all right, we want to know, what are your top 3 listing strategies? And so I would love to share, I would love for you to answer your question, because when you're helping agents and they say, I want to take more listings, what are the 3 things that they should do to get those listings?
Great question. Yeah, and seller leads, they're the holy grail. I mean, they're just harder to get than buyer leads. They just are. I think what people need to do is first off, they need to acknowledge it's a longer term game than just getting a quick buyer lead from a Facebook ad they started last night. It takes longer than that. So you have to brand yourself. You have to get your name out there. You have to be part of the community and let your community know that you are. So start a local show, start blogging, start interviewing local businesses, school teachers, or the principals of the school. Like, just go hop on Facebook Live, walking down Main Street, start talking about the history of the town, and tell a story of something that happened to you in your childhood on that street. Anything, with the whole goal of becoming, in the eyes of the general public, the expert on your area, the go-to guy or gal, if they need to sell or buy, because you are Mr. Salt Lake City, you are Mr. Scottsdale, you're Mrs. Omaha, whatever. And the only way to do that is to start getting content out there over and over and over again, not talking about real estate hardly ever. I constantly preach that you've got to stop posting about real estate all the time. So there's one of the tips. Stop posting about real estate all the time, unless you want people to tune you out.
Yeah. And I want you to continue, but I actually agree with what you're saying, is because it's hard for people to distinguish between, hey, buy my listing, hey, work with me, and them actually talking about real estate stuff that's not trying to sell real estate. Like we find as we help agents understand that they struggle with that difference.
They say, well, then what should I say? Well, then what should I do? Because unfortunately, sometimes you see people that take your advice, right? You see people that are going out there that are walking the streets and they're doing their Facebook Live videos from the streets, and you're like, oh, but not like that.
Yeah, fair point.
So when they do that, what are they trying to portray? Like, do you think that everybody should be doing Facebook Lives then? Is that?
Yeah.
I think
5 small Happy Meals.
I think everyone should be trying Facebook Live and Instagram stories to see if they, to see if they're going to be well received by people. Some people aren't. Some people just suck, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean you can't do content. Yeah, some people should not be on video. Some people should not be heard. It doesn't mean you can't be an amazing blogger.
Talking about us.
Yeah. So write it down, right? Yeah, there you go. Take photos and write it down. I love that though. He's just being righteous, though. I think. Yeah, it's a good message.
And here's the thing, too, guys. You may make 90% of people cringe because they don't like your personality or whatever. But guess what? Those 10% that actually are listening to you, they're resonating with you somehow. Maybe they have similar personalities, similar sense of humor, or a lack of one, or whatever. But if they're paying attention to you, you're finding the right people. By doing content over and over and over that's helpful and valuable and actually gets attention, you're actually finding your ideal client because you're attracting them instead of chasing them down and saying, hey, hire me. You're attracting them to you, and by default, they like something about you. Otherwise, you'd never hear from them.
Right.
Yeah. So when right before we went live, you used a phrase that we like to use as well, and that was become an expert in your neighborhood.
100%.
Right? That is, as the CBOC team has grown, we've tried to scale that, right? How can we magnify the amount? Like, you have expertise for a certain hood. How do you get that out to the masses? And so I've heard you say Instagram stories. I've heard you say Facebook Lives. What are other distribution methods that you find effective for the people you work with?
Yeah, like tactically, like what are is there any specifics any gems you could throw out there for our listening audience?
Web gems?
Web gems. I love web gems. For sure. Start a local podcast. Maybe it's just a podcast about your small little town, but you're going to become like the celebrity real estate agent by doing that. And people want to work with somebody that they know, like, and trust. So, and it's easier to like and trust someone who they see on TV or on the radio, right? These days, we can do all of it from our phones, all of it. Podcast, flash briefing on Alexa, which is like a mini podcast. You could do a video show. It doesn't have to be Facebook Live. I know some people freak out about the fact that it's live. I understand that. It's not for everybody. But you can still record a video and then post it later. You can start your own show using any of those mediums we've talked about. Just find what you enjoy doing, find what you are good at, and ask some people for feedback on it. Not your family. Go outside your family and say, look, you have full permission to be honest and hurt my feelings. Tell me, should I be doing this or not? And hopefully they'll be honest enough to tell you. And if not, then maybe you just go blog. Maybe you write articles and you can kill it with that. And you become like the local blogger that everyone looks to for information about that area that isn't political and isn't bad news.